You've tuned into the Relationship Therapy Podcast with Tony Miller Sr., a podcast designed for couples who are married, couples who are dating, and have marriage in their future. We will guide you to the principles that will make your relationship better. Stick around. You might just learn something that will help your relationship last longer, grow stronger, and become healthier. Now, here's your host, Tony Miller Sr.
Hello, everybody. This is your host, Tony Miller Sr. of the Relationship Therapy Podcast. I really appreciate all of my listeners who continue to listen to this podcast on a weekly basis. Every time it's dropped, I have some listeners are tuning right in and following along. And then I have some couples who are waiting to listen together when things have died down for the week, and they're listening together so it can help their relationship. I pray that what I'm saying and some of the principles that I'm teaching is helping you in your relationship, whether you're dating or whether you're married and have been married for some years. I've gotten some feedback from so many people talking about how they like this podcast. So thank you. But if you want to correspond with me, if you want to tell me good job, or if you just want to disagree with some of the principles and tools that I'm giving, you can reach me at tmrelationshiptherapy@gmail.com. I'm going to repeat that again, tmrelationshiptherapy@gmail.com. And I'll be looking forward to hearing your critiques, hearing your attaboys, or whatever you have for me to listen to. But now let's get to today's lesson, and we are going to talk about relationship barriers. In every relationship, at some point, there become some barriers that each person may have to climb over or go around or even dig through. And these relationship barriers have been built up. They are basically walls or barriers that have built up based on some previous things, or based on some previous blockages, or emotional or even mental things from their past. But they want to work through them. And I'm going to give you some information about some relationship barriers today. So stay with me. So here we go. Here's the first one. When we talk about relationship barriers, here's where we find ourselves sometime. Number one, we're stuck on previous relationships. Let me say it again. We're stuck on previous relationships. And when I talk about being stuck on previous relationships, I'm going to give you 3 quick points into that. Number one, we're still dealing with unhealed wounds. Too often, former relationships keep us and hold us. We have become paralyzed by what has happened in this former relationship, and we don't know how to get past the brokenness and the setbacks, and it hinders us from even thinking about moving forward into a new relationship. The problem we face is that these open wounds needs to be healed before we can even find ourselves jumping into another relationship. But it's sad to say, too many people don't allow themselves to heal before they go off and jump into a new relationship. And in that new relationship, they really don't give that new significant other an opportunity to understand them, because now they're already bleeding in this new relationship, and the other person don't even know what's going on. And it keeps the relationship from growing. But not only are we still dealing with unhealed wounds, we are constantly pushing people away. When we're stuck in previous relationships, not only are we dealing with unhealed wounds, but we're constantly pushing people away. What do I mean by that? Because of what has happened in our previous relationship, sometimes mentally and even emotionally, we think that we don't deserve being in a good relationship. Sometimes it hits us with low self-esteem and we don't feel like we're even worthy. And we block or we push away people that might be the person that the doctor ordered to help move us into a new relationship. The problem is our trust factor has suffered and we don't want to be hurt like that again. We don't want to go through that process again. But you've met someone new, but the relationship is heading toward getting closer to somebody new and developing the relationship, and we automatically start pushing back and we do things to push people away. So we talked about still dealing with unhealed wounds. We talked about you're constantly pushing people away. And then the third thing under stuck on previous relationships, we have not forgiven our ex. When we don't forgive people who've hurt us, who've done us wrong, we are stopping ourselves from moving forward. Though it may have been painful, though it may have caused some problems for us, we're not being able to move forward into a current relationship or even a potential relationship. Forgiveness doesn't mean that it didn't happen. But what it does say is that I'm releasing myself and I'm no longer being held hostage. So you must forgive the person that hurt you. But let's move on to point number 2. So we said in point number 1, you're stuck on previous relationships. But then here's another relationship barrier that we have to talk about today, and that is exaggerated expectations. Too often, couples don't talk about what is expected in relationships. Anytime I do premarital counseling, I do a session called Roles, Responsibilities, and Expectations, because you don't want to get in a relationship and somebody is trying to hold you accountable to something that may even be beyond your scope or beyond your reach of being able to fulfill. That is the problem. One day we're going to understand that there are no perfect women, there are no perfect men, but we continue to look for that perfect person. Everybody's trying to find that perfect mate, and that will never happen. There will be some mates who meet or check off parts of your list, but they will never check off the whole list. So you've got to make sure you don't expect perfection. But then another thing I want to highlight here is unspoken expectations. When there are unspoken expectations, you find that people are blown away because we've never had this conversation. We've never gone over the basic rules of the relationship. And when both people are not on the same accord and somebody has what we call an unspoken expectation, it leads to drama. It leads to chaos. And there will be argument after argument between the couple over something that one person never thought that they negotiated about in the beginning. It is truly unfair to expect something from your significant other if it is outside the boundaries of what has been discussed. You need to make sure that you have a thorough talk about your expectations in the relationship. And then the final thing under exaggerated expectations is we're too focused or we're comparing relationships of other people. That is a dangerous game that we can play with ourselves and we can play with our significant other. We're too focused, or we're comparing other people's relationships to ours. I agree, sometimes we're caught up on what the Joneses are doing. We see the Joneses are going on vacation, so now we want to go on vacation. We see that the Joneses bought a new car, so we want to buy a new car. And that is a very slippery slope when we're trying to copy what somebody else is doing. Your relationship is meant to be just for you. You don't have to pattern somebody else. Now, there may be some similarities of another relationship, but your relationship is your own dynamic, how you and your mate make it. There's a problem with doing this in relationships. And here's the problem. Too often we go through what I call the 80-20 rule. And let me explain what that is. Most of the time we find in our mate that they've checked off 80% of the things that we want in a mate. But the problem is we crave the 20%. And when we mess around and try to get the 20% outside of our relationship, sometimes it's too late, because the person who was the 80% is fed up and they've gone on to another relationship. So we have to be very careful about exaggerated expectations. And here's the third piece, so we can wind this episode up. The third is we have a lack of compromise, or there is over-compromise. What I mean is, sometimes you get into a relationship and you go into compromise so that you won't be fussing and fighting and arguing over things. So you may over-compromise. And I just want to say this. I want to give you 3 quick points under that. When you over-compromise, or there is no lack of compromise, you understand this principle. It can't be your way or their way all the time. There has to be true compromise in the relationship. When did we start thinking that everything was about us? I know your mate started out giving you this and doing this and giving special grace to you, but you've got to understand this relationship is about 2 people and not just you. A relationship is a partnership between 2 people who say that they love each other and they're going to experience things together. When you have a compromise or lack of compromise, or an even over compromise in a relationship, it throws the relationship off balance. And when something is off balance, it automatically makes the other side work harder. You ever notice when you have an ankle injury or a knee injury, you limp and you're putting more weight on the other leg that's healthy? And before long, that other leg becomes unhealthy from carrying the weight so long that they shouldn't have had to carry. That's what happens in relationships. So it must be some compromise and not over compromising in the relationship. But not only that, a lack of compromise or over compromise also exposes your immaturity. When you are finding yourself or calling yourself being everything about me, you are showing your lack of compromise, but also you're showing your immaturity. We see too many examples of selfishness in the world we live in. It can't be that way in the relationship, or there will be a fundamental breakdown somewhere down the line. Anytime you place too much weight on that relationship, you start doing damage to that relationship. You got to carry yourself, and you cannot be in a thriving relationship, in a healthy relationship, and be immature. because sometimes the immature person in the relationship is fragile. And sometimes people don't know how to deal with fragile or immature relationships. It gives them thoughts of leaving and finding happiness elsewhere. And when they become uncomfortable and they see that this relationship is not growing, they tend to try to go elsewhere. And you don't want that. And then here's the final point I want to make up under lack of compromise or over-compromise. It leads to resentment. When you are over-compromising or there is no compromise, you begin resenting your significant other. There becomes some underlying feelings. And now you really find it hard to be affectionate with someone that you are really resenting. So we've got to make sure in our relationships that there is some compromise. So there you have it. Today we talked about relationship barriers. And one of the barriers we talked about is that you're stuck on previous relationships. The second barrier we talked about is exaggerated expectations. And then the third barrier we talked about is a lack of compromise or over-compromise. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Give me some feedback. You get my email with my announcer at the end. Send me something. I want to know how I'm doing. So I appreciate you for listening. And just remember, it takes two to make a relationship work. Talk to you later. Before we go today, I just want to make you aware that I've got a special interview coming up, and I'm sure you're going to love it. It is Mr. So You Want to Talk About Leadership himself, Tony Miller Jr., and I'm also going to be speaking to my daughter-in-law, his wife, Eleni Miller, as we talk more about relationships. So I want you to tune in when we have this interview with Tony and Eleni Miller.
Thank you for listening to the Relationship Therapy Podcast with Tony Miller Sr. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. Tune in next time for more insight on how to make your relationship better. If you have any questions, please email us at tmrelationshiptherapy@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, remember, it takes two to make the relationship work.